Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to rumble? Right, but so let's dive into the episode. I know last episode, hot take. I'm digging it. I think altogether we are going to break down some of these episodes with some podcast material. And today is going to be about data structures and broken ass interview things. Reason is, yesterday I had a tech lead interview and I was sent some coding questions initially, crushed them, of course, with the help of, ChatGPT and Stack Overflow, et cetera, and prior experience and previous knowledge. And then I get the interview call back. Hey, let's do an interview. So it's a tech lead position. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to need to talk about cloud architecture, how I would design a system, how I'd containerize an application, design patterns, maybe pair programming questions, how I can manage someone with PRs and this, that, and the other. But no, we're talking about a ridiculously simple algorithm question, and I put my frustrations in the vlog. I think you could see the frustrations in the vlog a bit, but in short, it was a trading algorithm question, and the trading algorithm question, I take it as, okay, so in order to basically build a future trading algorithm, here, let me pull up a file and just give the rough thing, right? Let's just build a algo.tsx, or we'll say .ts, that's fine. So the question was, right, build an algorithm that, looks something like this. Or excuse me, you're given an array that looks something like this. And she's like, build a trading algorithm on it. Okay, so immediately I'm like, okay, we're going to need more data than just this, because you're going to need dates associated with these numbers. What do these numbers represent? They're just numbers, right? And it was a very vague situation where I get interviewers do this. I get you're supposed to collaborate. I get all that stuff. But basically, I'm conceptualizing, and mind you, also in the scope of a tech lead position. So it's incredibly frustrating when you're like, okay, why are we focused on sorting an array or like finding the highest value in the array, right? And this is probably a very common frustration with other software engineers, is like, why are we still doing algorithm style questions? Like they're absolutely broken for what you do in a business. And I'll explain in a sec, but like let's just focus on the algorithm, then I'll scope out and talk about larger concepts beyond data structures and algorithms. So the question was, build a trading algorithm. Can you build a trading algorithm that knows when to buy stocks low and sell them high? Okay, so doing that's a big ask, right? That's okay. I'm thinking, okay, well, first of all, we need data that is going to have, it's not just going to be, a number there. We also need a date or some sort of timestamp, right, associated with each one of these things. You can't just build a trading algorithm on one array of numbers, right? So immediately I'm conceptualizing this, right, of hey, we need to certainly extract a date according to the algorithms, or according to the data, where we're going to have all these different dates, right? Date 3, date 4, value 12, value 13. And out of this, we can actually uncover, right? We can uncover an average, right? We can take dates by, let's say this is going to be a week worth of data. These are just random points, but this is a week worth of data. If the dates are days, right? Maybe it's not date, but it's like day 1, day 2, day 7, right? Whatever it is. We can now find an average. And whatever that average is, let's say the average is, looks like, I don't know, off the top of my head, 1, 4, 12, 13, 8, 2, like maybe the average is 7, right? So like rough average equals 7, right? And let's say now we also have a bank account, const bank account with maybe $100. Well, now we can build an idea. Here's our average at 7. Here's all of our data points going all around it. Now the idea is, okay, the further away from the average, we can deploy more of our capital. The lower below the average, we can deploy more of the capital, because we're going to have days in front of this, and they're unknown days, right? ... We don't know what tomorrow's going to be in a trading algorithm. If you could look back in history and it's going to exactly be the same in the future, well, we'd all be rich as fuck, because it's you have all the data. It's supposed to be the model, but that's not actually how a trading algorithm works. You're using past experience to best predict, but it's not a guarantee. It's to best predict the future. So you have to build things, a system that can best predict the future. And I think that's a hell of a start, is what I just presented, right? You're going to have a working average, and you need it to, so a function that's going to discover the average based on the date that you deploy. Maybe we can actually build this out here, and today would actually be kind of fun to build out. But then you also need another function that's going to deploy more capital based on how far away from you are from the average below it. And then you also are going to need another function that sells your stock, right? So you have buy stock function, and then you also have a function that's going to sell the stock. And maybe they're the same function, but you need both these functionalities, right? So one that's going to sell the stock. The farther away it gets from the average, you need to sell more and more and more stock. Trading algorithm 101, right? At least a rough idea of it. Like I'm thinking that's a genius concept. Like I just tackled that in 2 seconds. It's just like, well, do you want to talk about the algorithm? I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, dude, we were just talking about it. Like, I'm narrating my thoughts. I'm come to find out, she doesn't want any of this, right? She's like, oh, well, I don't want this. She's like, well, you're gonna have to. The algorithm has to buy the stock below the highest number. Okay, how do you know what the highest number is? How do we not know that tomorrow's going to be 16, the next day is going to be 19, the next day is going to be 25? That, like, you have no idea. All you could do is build a best reference point, and it's just a reference point, your average. That's how you can determine what's quote unquote high or low if you're doing future predictions. But what she was ultimately asking was a basic algorithm question, right? Which was just find the lowest point in the array and compare it to the highest point of the array. That is not the question she asked me. So after 10 minutes go by of me breaking down what I feel is like honestly something I want to build now, and something we should roughly at least just a fun version build. But here I am conceptualizing what I feel like is a genuinely solid thing, right? Where you can what I feel like a DSA, at least in person thing, is about is you're gauging someone's intelligence at this point. And to me, that felt like I'm covering a lot of bases. I'm talking about the data. I'm talking about a reference point of how we can build an auxiliary reference point where there's technically no high or low. It's just based on where you're at in the array, right? What if down the road the array starts printing out numbers like this? The next day passes and we're 150. Well, our averages are now significantly higher, right? Like, and what if our numbers aren't even this? It's like 1,000 or 10,000, 20,000. That number and this number, and then you get some numbers that are like really low, like a 23, a 29, a 27. Well, how would you know this in your algorithm that this is quote unquote a low number? You can't go based on the numbers. You have to go based on an average. So anyway, the point is like, I felt like I demonstrated a strong level of intelligence, and then for it to be like disrespected of like, well, do you want to talk about it? Like it was the most like, oh my God, I'm over DSA questions. And here's why, because the concepts of things are more important than the actual syntax and the actual coding out like leak code grinding questions, because we're in a different world now. And this is so I talked about the algorithm, right? And I'm going to talk about zooming out on a larger scope. And fundamentally, all she wanted was like you put a pointer here, and this is what I landed on. At we had like 2 minutes left in the interview, and I was like, okay, so if we just put a pointer, then we could do a loop here, and then put another pointer and just check, if this number's higher, move the pointer to the right. If it's not, boom, move this left pointer over one, check all the other numbers, boom. Like, and that's the actual answer. That's like your low level, like introductory algorithms or like easier algorithm question, right? But when she primed me and said, I want you to build a trading algorithm that buys stock at low, sells it at high, I feel like I really captivated a certain level of intelligence, right? That even she couldn't understand the concepts. And I know that's a harsh thing to say, but I was looking across like, okay, why are we in this interview anymore? Like, I don't want to work here. You know what I mean? Like if I'm being freaking chastised and scolded on one thing, it should not be a basic concept like that. Like that is so wrong. And here's why, because the entire space of software is changing. Like we can find hardest out, like some pretty hard algorithms, merge a binary tree, right? And here's Algo Expert, which is, obviously a really, really, really powerful place to do algorithms. And I understand the idea behind algorithms is you want to have concepts down. You want to demonstrate different approaches to solve problems. But where it doesn't add up anymore is now we have this thing called ChatGPT. So typically merge two binary trees, this is like a harder problem. Like this might take half hour, 20 minutes, depending on where you're at. Maybe even more, maybe even an hour, maybe even 2 hours, right? Like, but in ChatGPT, I can just type it in, given two binary trees, let's see, merge them and return the resulting tree, right? If two nodes overlap during the merger, then sum the values. Otherwise, use the existing code or existing node, excuse me. Note that your solution, right? And people are like, trying to prevent you from copying stuff. And I guess we could even copy it from just pulling up here, right? Like doing this, and technically you could copy it through the, console, right? Like, so that there's always workarounds, or you could use your phone to scan the text and like literally just copy it, hand off on your computer. Like it takes 2 seconds to copy, right? Like it's just making things harder when people are like trying to avoid the AI thing, where they're like trying to do these interview questions as if we don't have ChatGPT to just blast through all of these. Like some of the hardest leak code questions, right? You could literally do, let's see. I'll say this is an input class, do not edit. Okay, so boom. I'll copy this. I'll say here is what I have so far. And boom. So I'll just go ahead and drag and drop literally what ChatGPT prints out. And let's see. This worked flawlessly earlier, so maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Okay, let's see. Merge binary tree 1, merge binary tree 2. Okay. So and maybe this is why, maybe this is why you need to let's see if I'm in JavaScript. But the point is like we can typically run through these things, right? I'll say it's not working. Try again. Let's see if it comes up with something. Like typically it works every time without miss. So maybe I also put the wrong thing in, hit 1, hit 2, hit 3. Merge binary tree, let's see, binary tree, boom. Let me just Command Z this, right? I'll pop it right here. And let's try one more time, right? So I just gave it everything. And let's see. So boom, 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 and boom. Let's see, boom, run code. There you go. So it submits code. It took me 4 minutes to solve. Yeah, we had some problems. There was almost a moment where I was completely wrong, but boom, it's 12 out of 12, passes all the test cases. Like, that's the actual world we live in now. Like, I haven't studied data structures and algorithms in forever. Like, you could see I've done 11% of these. And yet I just solved a like pretty difficult question, like in no time at all. In no time at all. Count the squares. Like we could do the same thing. But the point is, we're in a completely different space. We're in a completely different environment, and I'm getting over. Let's move on. I don't need to prove the point anymore. If you want to do it, like you guys all know how well ChatGPT can just shred through these type of technical questions, and but the concept is still important to understand what it's doing, right? So I get that part of it, but the part I don't get is like data structures and algorithms within coding is very much like learning chess, right? Like you can get really talented at chess, but it's not going to make you a better software engineer. Like you might be able to utilize the fact that you can link patterns together in your brain from chess. You could utilize that skill set in software, but it's not going to make you you're not learning AWS cloud architecture by looking at this chessboard. You're not going to, right? Like you're not learning design patterns by looking at this chessboard. You're not learning pair programming, managerial skills, like business concepts, how to influence a project. You're not learning Figma design. You're not learning like how to do atomic functions because of a chessboard. And that's why I'm getting so irritated by it, because it's like you're trying to water down and distill my intelligence, which is like all of this experience, being fruitful with this, collecting royalties, putting out music, this, that, like all the way down to like a question that I was primed, which I still came up with an amazing concept, which I still crushed even the question by the end of it by putting 2 pointers, And it's like, it's just awkward, because when you're building a business, which is what a software engineer is hired to help do, is build a company in one way or another, or maintain a company, some sort of business thing, right? That's what you're hired to do. And we're not playing the game of chess as a company. You're building the chessboard, right? What type of wood do we use for the chessboard? What's going to be our product? Where can we get a supplier? What type of price range can we get? What's our budget for the chessboards? What if we're selling different styles of chessboards? Some of them are 8x8s. What if we're selling a 4x4 type chessboard? What does the marketing look like on the shelf for a chessboard, right? Like, these are all like larger and even more, right? Like even more questions go beyond that. Like, how many different pieces do we have? Do we have different colors? Do we have a light chessboard? Do we have a dark chessboard? What's our audience? Who do we market the chessboard to? How many people of this thing are playing chess? How many aren't playing chess in this time zone or this like? And can we track the people who've ordered the chessboard? Like, we're doing so much more than just saying like, well, what's the best move here in this position on chess? Like I recognize, and I'm not dismantling chess. I think chess is very, very, very brilliant. But the logical fallacy I'm drawing between the data structure, the algorithm, judging you for a job is terrible in today's world, because you can literally pass in ChatGPT to say, okay, give me the best option here, and it'll do it. Like it reminds me of the times in school when they were like, oh, you can't use your phone as a calculator because you'll never have your phone on you in real life, in the real world. You can't use Google because you'll never have Google. And now literally all of us have a supercomputer in our pocket that you can literally use ChatGPT on. Everywhere we go, all the time, 24/7. So sorry guys, I'm a little irritated. But that is why I'm like, no, like people need to change how they're vetting for, or they don't, but I think the top companies, and this is what I loved so much about Babson, was there was kind of that attitude of like, we don't care how you solve the problem, get it done. And that's what I loved about the company, was like, no, just get it done. Like, and that was one of the best companies I've worked for by far, with some of the top talent, with like killers. Like I mean people who've owned businesses before, people who have just done phenomenal things. They know people who've done phenomenal things and made millions of dollars. Like, and I think that's wise, because they're like, no, we're hyper resourceful, we're leveraging the most from the least, and we're asking all these larger scope questions. We're not asked, like one of Babson's things to get hired by them was, how would you build Twitter? And I may not have even have had the best answer, but the fact I was talking about larger ideas and systems design and stuff, they were like, okay, well, he seems like he would be a good opportunity or good asset for the company. But if I was hyper penalized on not studying leak code questions, like, I got to be honest, I don't give a flying, like, like, I don't care. You know what I mean? I genuinely don't, because, and maybe I should, maybe that is my downfall potentially, but I don't see that as being larger business scope problems. I don't see that as like, you're not solving marketing issues, you're not solving efficiencies, you're not solving customer retention, you're not solving UI UX questions, you're not like, you're asking chessboard questions, and we're asking how to sell a chessboard as a whole, right? So to me, and especially with the space when again, ChatGPT exists now, like it's the genie is out there, the genie is out of the bottle. You can't undo that. There is no undoing it. As much as people want to say, and they want to overlook it, and they want to even for algo expert, they're like, oh, well, we'll make these text unselectable. That'll stop them, right? It's like, no, like you can't deny the thing that's kind of Elon Musk's approach to AI. It's like, no, like we have to compete with it. We either have to, like, of course we want to try to slow it down if we can, but like the point is you have to compete with it. So that's where the chip and the brain comes in. That's where, the idea of augmenting human intelligence comes in. And that's what I'm advocating for these interviews, is like, why would you, I don't know, personally, because it's like, end of the day, if I'm working for your company and I can't use ChatGPT at work, like, really, like, I can't use Google at work, I don't know. I just think it's a bad, like, I just don't think you're going to be vetting for the best talent. I think you're going to be betting for the best people who remember the most leak code problems. I don't think you're going to be getting ultimately the person who can come up with business ideas, come up with design, come up with Figma structures, come up with this, come up with a new concept that the application might need. Personally, and maybe a company doesn't need that. Maybe they do need someone who is really good at solving very, very specific algorithm problems. But I would imagine that for like a stock trading company. But then even then, I would still argue my response to that lady's question would have been genius. Still would have been a better solution than like asking for, the lowest low in the array and the highest high. Like, you just sort it, index the first element, then index the last element in the array. Like, there you go. Problem solved. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to get more wrapped up to it, but it's such a broken process, because it demonstrates your ability of what you've been preparing, and coding interviews, but it doesn't demonstrate intelligence, in my opinion. It's almost like I would say the same thing with musicians, right? Like the most talented musicians are the ones who can create music, right? Not the ones who can replicate music. And I think the same thing applies with software. It's I can watch 1,000 tutorials and learn exactly how to build a to-do list as this person builds it, but I'll never be as talented as the version of a person who can just build their own version of things. Like you may have to, like I don't know, you may have to, how do I frame this? You might have to what's the thought? Like you might have to learn how to build off of someone for a while, and then you build your own stuff. But your end goal should never be to like know only exactly what someone else knows, right? And I feel like that's where data structures and algorithms, like to me, feel like they're missing, because you're missing two things. Like one, I think people unanimously can agree that DSAs to determine intelligence, it's kind of been a broken process, right? But now, especially with the advent of ChatGPT and these other AI generative language models, GitHub Copilot, like Tab 9, you really don't need, like, again, unless you're in a heavy place where like a Facebook or a Google, where you're doing like deep learning algorithms, or like I can completely understand it then. But for a company that is like struggling to meet deadlines because they can't architect things proper, because that's literally what the company was going through. And I don't mean to talk poorly about them, but in that interview, it made complete sense. I was like, this is exactly why you guys are not on time. This is exactly because like just how the interview was going, even before, it was like just a tough interview. It just wasn't the vibe, like you could just kind of tell, like not to, but like my interview with Babson, it was so fun, so enjoyable. Like you go there, you feel welcomed, you feel the energy. People are genuinely enjoying their work. People are getting things done. People are innovating stuff. They're building new things. Like that's what I loved about the company. So it was a lot easier to be humble and listen and try my best to push the youthful exuberance aside and just be a sponge and just like try to contribute, because everybody there is smart. So you don't have to like prove you're smart, right? Like everybody there was, like I said, there's a guy who used to own a gym. There's a guy who ran this business. This guy came from this amazing healthcare company. Like this guy did like everyone there was really, really talented. So it just so frustrating when you come across paths with something like that, where it's like interview question. Oh, just told me everything in that interview, where it was just like, okay, I'm gonna go do my own thing then, or I'm gonna go and see some other companies, because absolutely not. That was so frustrating. With like Honeydew, sorry guys, I'm just like, this is less about coding today. This is more just about talking shit about broken data structure and algorithm interviews. But with Honeydew too, it's like we're talking about concepts. We're talking about building the application. Hey, what does the application need? What's efficient here? Do you guys need this thing over here on this page too? And how should we do the data handling for this? What's our data object look like? What about this 2D array that gets pushed into our treatment group? Like then you're building still an algorithm, but that's not like that's just part of the puzzle, when the rest is like, how are we handling our users? Are we going to use AWS Cognito? Are we going to use some other authentication service? How are we going to deploy the application? Like there's so much more to it than just data structure and algorithm. So I don't know. It was just like, I genuinely think people would benefit a lot more by seeing someone build components, because that is literally what you're doing as a software engineer. If you're like, hey, you're trying out to be a full stack engineer, can you build this component, and it needs this functionality, and it needs this, and it needs to look roughly like this, do that. That I am all game for. Like that is, you might need to do a little bit of data structures and algorithms. You might need to do some CSSing. You might need to do some conceptualizing on how your endpoints link up to this thing. Like that I can 1,000,000% get behind, because that's literally what you're doing as a software engineer, right? So it's a bit like football when they judge people on their 40-yard dash and things like this, and then but they still need to see you play football. You know what I mean? They still need to see you play football. Right? It's such a arbitrary thing to just judge somebody on just their like 3-cone sprint, their 3-cone drill, rather than, you know, the whole package. Like Tom Brady, if I'm not mistaken, had a terrible just NFL like draft thing. Like, you know, or not terrible, but like, you know, wasn't the most eye-opening. And then who does he become? Tom Brady, right? So it's like those things are like correlated to good football players, maybe in some, like loosely correlated, but it's not the strongest correlation. It's not the strongest correspondence. And that's the frustration I'm experiencing, especially with ChatGPT. It's like, dude, like we have to rethink software engineering as a whole because of these things. You don't need 50 guys now working on one algorithm when ChatGPT is better than majority of software engineers at data structures and algorithms. Just use ChatGPT. That's the smarter thing to do, in my opinion. And then even with ChatGPT, if you need it to explain it to you, you can literally say, can you explain this to me? Explain the concept of why we're doing this. And it will tell you, we did this for this and this and this. So it's just such a like broken process, in my opinion. It just doesn't feel like the most efficiency. It doesn't even feel like 50% efficiency. It feels like you're judging an F1 driver on his ability to change a horseshoe. First of all, the F1 driver doesn't even work on the car most of the time, right? Second of all, why is he working on a horse when he drives a car? You know, it's like that's data structure and algorithm interviews in a nutshell. At least that one was just like I don't know, but yeah, let's dive in. I'm pretty wrapped up about that about that a little bit, but and it doesn't help too, because people they see me with a beer, they see me with a girlfriend, and they immediately assume, okay, there's no way he's smart. There's no way he's like, but like behind the scenes, like I'm a huge just like want to learn this, want to study this, want to do this. But anyway, let's get off all that. Let's get to the most important thing here, which is going to be building task. I think from yesterday, we have our delete column. We want to build a delete modal. We also want to build something to update our projects, our project completion to the last column. So either the last column needs to be, sorry guys, we definitely need to change speed too, because that's just a lot of bad tone and dirtying the water. But you know, I'm not perfect, and I don't want to advertise myself to be perfect. I'm a human being with my own beliefs, my own thoughts, my own autonomy, right? Like that's a beautiful existence as a human being. So anyway, back to zooming in on the application. What I want to do is have that delete column modal, and we need to judge the project completion based on the last indexed column, I think is how to do it. Or we can always auto-populate where there's always going to be a completed column no matter what for every single user, period, point blank. And that way we can always say project completion if task exists there, measured in which category it's in, and boom, and complete the task. So I think there's opportunity there for that. But let's see, delete column. Let's start with probably the easier of the two tasks, which I believe is going to be the delete column. I think this was for reactivity. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's delete column. Delete column. Where is that? Oh, right here. Okay, cool. So delete task column. Guys, yeah, I don't mean to play victim or stuff, but I feel like the job search thing is so broken for software engineers at the moment, where to me it doesn't seem like a good idea to go out in the job market. It seems like a better idea is just to build and attract, right? Build and attract rather than yeah, because talking on the other line of that was just so irritating, where you're like I hate to sound arrogant or snarky, but it's like when you almost know or feel like you're smarter than the other person. You're like, why are you even asking me these questions? Like, oh, like just so I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit facetious and arrogant, uh, it really came across a way of like, God, I don't know. I really anticipate myself to build a ridiculous business now at this point, because I'm looking around like, okay, if this person could build this, if this person has this opportunity, then like I should be able to do something. You know what I mean? With my life, that's indicative, that speaks for itself. That's already saying you're successful and you don't have to, listen to other people on certain things, right? Because that it's just like so humiliating too when you have to like sit there and you have to try to play the game, and it's like you don't even want to play the game. You just want to get to building stuff the whole time. Like you just want to be an asset for a company, and they're like, of course their job's to filter you out, but like at the same time, when you've built your own things, you've built your own companies, you've had experience here, you've had like, you can't help but feel like maybe not offended, but just again, when you talk about the chessboard thing, you're like, aren't we supposed to be talking about how the chessboard's going to look on the shelves, what stores we need to put the chessboard in, how we're going to make that system happen, how are we going to produce a mass level of chessboards? Like, why are we focused on playing the game? We've already figured out how to play the game. We don't need to be masters of the chessboard. Like we can have chess grandmasters, but that's not what building a business is, right? Like building a business or being a software engineer, especially for a business, in my humble opinion, isn't. I don't want to keep harping on it, because I feel like I'm probably wrong on 30 to 40% of this, where like being a good NBA player on the NBA team will probably make you a better coach or a better owner, potentially. But I don't think it's required for you to be like the NBA best 3-point shooter, if you will. Even though that's like what I'm working on here is like my 3-point shots, right? Is like, let's get better at coding, right? But that's not going to make me a better coach, I don't think. It's not going to make me a better team owner. The team owner has to consider, all of his vendors. The team owner has to consider the calendar on when stuff's going to be booked. And the team owner, like the arena owner, right? They need to consider their budget, their marketing, their it's like the hot dog stands and the drinks and the price for all those things. And like that's a lot what, in my mind, the upper software engineers are probably tasked with. I feel like more so than like the how well can you dribble the ball? Because there's like different skill sets on the court. It's like, some people are good at 3-point shots, some people are good at rebounds, some people are good at passing the ball and assist. Nobody's great at everything though, right? And that's like your software engineering team is like, you got like a front end developer, you got a back end engineer, you got a DevOps guy. But fundamentally, none of those questions asked on how well is your 3-point shot is not asking the question on how well is, that's not a business metric question. That's not measuring, your price point on if your your Coca-Cola costs you 30 cents to sell or 30 cents to make, and you sell it for $1.03. Like, I feel like those questions are so much more important, right? Like your AWS, like how can you make this service cheaper? How can you make this service cheaper than what it previously was? What are some ideas around that? That to me is so much more important than in this array, can you find the highest high and the lowest low? Like, oh, just you know what I mean? And then you have to sit there as an interviewee. You have to sit there and kind of just take it and be like, dude, like so frustrating. You know what I mean? So I'm very, very excited for the day when I can vet out from the other side, because that would be the number one thing I would look for if I'm an employer. The very first thing I would always look for, let's see, columns delete, column modal. Sorry guys, I'm like talking and pretty hyped up here instead of coding too much. But the very first thing I would look for when hiring someone was like their business ability. Like, have you ran a business before? Even if it failed, that tells me so much more about you than like, can you answer another leak code question? Because again, like I just proved I haven't studied leak code questions in forever, and I just solved like a medium difficult one, you know, with the help of the tools and resources around me, of course. But I don't know if I'm going to take off the tire to my F1 car, am I going to use the power drill or am I going to use my hand, you know, with a wrench? It's like, I'm just going to use the power drill. Like, yeah, if I'm the fastest wrench handler with the F1 car, yeah, like it'll be impressive. Oh, you're the fastest. But everybody with a power tool can just get the tire off themselves. You know, like, any more questions? You know what I mean? Like, So that to me is why it's such a broken process, because it's not that's a perfect example. Actually, that's exactly why it's a broken process. So I personally will be vetting out for that on companies' end, because I don't look fondly upon that. I think that's a bad sign from a company, to be honest. If you know, if that's see if that's roughly what they're doing, but let's zoom in here. Let's get out of that space in my head a little more. You know what I mean? It's always tough talking about that stuff, and you feel like you're like roasting a company or something, or a person, or it's getting wrapped up. But at the same time, guys, I do want to have some material here that's honest and you know, not just honest, but also entertaining a little bit, and just I don't know. But let's see, test store. What was it? Button state, was it? Test store test state is what it was. Okay. So looks like we will go to the test store and then pop in the, oh gosh, I'm making a mess. You know what I mean? Making a mess, exhausted. Day's just off to a rocky start. I suppose. not actually, but just a salty start, if you will. Set task state to loading for this delete task column. We'll give it that, and then we'll time it out for success. And where was it? Boom. Get delete. Boom. There it is. Get task column. Boom. We'll give it a success, and then we will also give it a failed state if it doesn't do it. So now our task button, our giant delete task button, or delete task column button, should have a loading state with it. Oop. Delete column. We don't need all of this input stuff. We actually just need create task. Well, hold on, let's think about it. We definitely want some of this stuff, right? We want something here that says like, are you sure? Similar to what we did with the delete task modal. Maybe we can even use that same modal and just repurpose it. Let's see. Start closing functions because this file is getting a little bit too big. Boom. Boom. Boom, boom. Boom. Okay, cool. So that's that. That's that. That's all of our functions here. Let's see. Column options. Where did we put the delete task modal? Because don't we have a pop-up right in the add task, the post task modal content. I believe we have another, or no, maybe it's in the update. It's in the update. That's correct. Then we have a modal here. Delete task modal. Ah, there it is. Okay. So that belongs within inside. It looks like within inside of the update task modal. Okay, so the idea we could do, delete task modal, but no, then we have to deal with this stuff as well. So I won't do too much there. We'll just steal that actually. And let's go to our here. We'll say delete task column modal, right? And this won't be our base button anymore. We'll steal this function, and this will be task column ID. That needs to go here. Instead of delete task, we're going to delete task column. It is. So we want to get our task column ID. Let's see. So we have this, and this needs to be a base modal now instead of this. Base modal, and we are going to have pretty much this right here, actually. But this, instead of that, it'll be this right here, and we don't need task. We need to pass in, what do we have? Create task column. No, we'll obviously rename it all here in a sec. Column modal. We do need task column ID. So I'm thinking, how do we pass this in here, because we obviously handle it within the task column. So that is this. The task column is this. Where do we? Oh, we can access it anywhere. Okay, no problem. So really don't even need to pass in a task even. I believe we could just literally do this, and that should work. So we can pop it up, and instead of, the delete button, we'll have like a delete task with, like, this will just be an X up here, and then this will be like delete task column so-and-so with X amount of task. Are you sure? Boom, are you sure? And this is when the function actually gets fired off. We see the loading state, success. It doesn't look like it deleted it. Let's see, refresh. It did delete it. Okay, perfect. So that worked roughly. Base columns, looks like we have an error here. Not sure why. We'll delete that in a moment, but the point is it's working. We need to get a prettier add column task modal as well. So let's build for this though. Sorry guys, that rant earlier was just frustrations pouring out of me, where I know I'm not the smartest engineer in the world because there's some really, really, really smart people, but the other side is like I just get so irritated when some people like I just feel like the let's see if we can use task column name, right? Task columns, where does this go? Task columns, that's it. We don't use it anywhere. Oh, here we go. Task column dot name. But just so I don't want to say maybe irritating because it's also like not irritating in the sense you're like happy to have an opportunity, you're happy to do that. But when you finally like cross paths with other software engineers, like half the time I'm like, oh, they get it, they get it, like they get me. But there's another part where it's like, no, they have like no idea where I'm at with things. They have no, and that could be a communication issue on me, on my end, absolutely. But on the other side of it, I'm also like, how do you not know these things? Like where am I losing you on this stuff? I feel like it's a basic concept that we just covered, and I look like I'm stupid or something. I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it, folks. I got triggered. I got scared. Task column from here. Test. I didn't click on that. I didn't click on the from here test one. I clicked on the test. Oh, I see it's rendering all of them. Okay, so we need task columns dot map. We can either pass it in from base columns of task columns, or we can also say, I still don't know why. We're getting an error there. We'll see task column name. Boom, perfect. And we can pop over here to task column name. String, and I think this could be string. Maybe task columns like this, I believe. There we go. Okay, that's what we were missing yesterday. And boom, task column name. Let's go ahead and pop this into our array. Instead of having this thing, we'll just boom, delete task column. This one, delete task column name. So test should be delete task column test. Perfect. We'll change this to a delete route just as part of our little tasteful touch. And we could also put this here. Delete task column test, and maybe we'll put task here, like number of tasks associated with it. So this could probably be an H1. This could probably be a div, right, with like number of tasks. Text center with full. Oh wait, we don't want text center. Actually, we want text start. Nice. Okay. Maybe we don't even want an H1. We want like an H2 or H3. Or we'll rock with the H1, it looks like. Okay. Don't know what happened there. Thought we had our H1s configured in our CSS. Maybe we don't. Number of tasks. Okay, let's see. Number of tasks, and we need, I believe it's going to be filter task.length. You're deleting a column, right, with blank tasks. Let's see. Boom. You're deleting a column with. Oh, we didn't save. So we'll do that. Boom. You're deleting a column with 1 tasks. Are you sure? Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Something like that, where people can just slow down for a second, do a little hot take, make sure they want to delete this or not, right? Boom. Let's see. We could do class text red 500 even. And we could do all this class name flex and white space no wrap. Oh, and gap x2. You delete a column with 1 task, right? With 2 tasks. Boom, nice, look at that. And boom, are you sure? I love it, folks. I think that's fantastic. Let's make sure that red is the same on the column as the button. I think it is. Background red. Is it background red? Background red 600 it looks like. Thought it was just a little bit off. Yep, looks like we're using 600 for that button, so that's perfect. We'll have text match, and maybe instead of having red dash this, we could change and configure our reds and greens and stuff, and our warning messages and all that stuff. Could probably be a hex code in Tailwind. Should probably be a hex code in Tailwind, but this is coming together great. Let's look at the full screen view of it. You're deleting a column with 1 task. Delete. Are you sure? Okay, perfect. That's cool. That is awesome. And let's make this button like a little X up here so we can still have the functionality of this. We need to fix that functionality. I wonder why that is too. I wonder if it's a grow thing. Column collapsed. Let's see. So I don't think it's going to be any of this stuff. This stuff gets removed when the column's collapsed. Might be in the base columns. I remember it happened because of this, I think. Maybe because it's absolute, potentially. Oh, because it's flex. Okay, so I wonder how to manage that, right? Let's try a few things. We'll go flex row, see if that changes anything. Doesn't look like it does. It's not because it's absolute. I don't think so. No. Okay. So it is the flex that we obviously saw. So what we can do is pass in the is column collapsed function. I'm trying to think, folks. Maybe not even. Maybe that's doing too much. Maybe we can. Let's see. Let's think about it. Let's think about it for a second. Because we definitely want that functionality still, where we can collapse the columns. Just cleans them up a little bit, or gives the user a feeling of control, right? So let me think about it. Maybe we could do some sort of grid, right? Maybe that'll solve the issue. Oh, grid calls 3 should be doing this, right? But I see. We're gonna run into some issues there. So I think it's because we're mapping over it, and the map is like all of these things are all connected, right? So the CSS for this needs to be different from the next one. So I wonder if we can wrap this even in a div. Let's try that out. Maybe that's literally it. Yeah. Problem solved. Cool, folks. Well, I was going to do a whole bunch of other stuff. Thank God we didn't. I was going to pass in a function from the parent into the child, doing what was it going to be, like omitting whether that column was collapsed, which index column was collapsed. But looks like we solved the problem with a div, folks. So that is incredible. Okay, so let's get back to business, which is we just want to adjust the arrow and put a let's see, where's delete test column? We have it down here. Let's bring it up a little. Yep, we can put it there. That's fine. And the button shows we're going to need to build another button. Well, we also need to solve that warning down the road where originally we had a button, we had base button, right? And we just passed in a prop here, you know, some title like button text, right? Or even children, like content children or something. And I vaguely remember why it wasn't working. So maybe we'll give that a go down the road. And we didn't have any of these, but it was just a simple component like this. And I loved it. But the problem was, oh, that's kind of cool. The problem was it wasn't working. What's the problem? It was throwing some error. So let's just keep with our button chose thing for now. Delete column, and this won't be this. It'll just be an X, right? And say delete task. It'll be delete column. Let's see if we can get that going right. Let's remount everything on the DOM. Why is it still a delete button? Did I not do the right one? Okay, let's see. Background, delete a column. Boom, boom, boom. Delete column. Delete column modal. Which exists here. Ah, that's what we need. Delete column. That's where it is. Okay. So delete column. That actually does need to be delete task. It's fine. So this is just going to be our button right there. Boom. It really doesn't even need to be a button, like a base button. It could actually just be a button. Much more simple. And it won't have a custom function. I'll just have an on click. Boom. And we're back to working, right? So that works perfectly adequate. And of course we can CSS it up a little. So we'll just say opacity 50, cursor pointer. Transition, hover, we can say opacity 100 and active scale 90. Boom. So that looks about appropriate. And let's get that button right where it needs to be. We can close out this and close this. Let's see, where is that other deal? We'll wrap these two buttons together. And we'll say items center. They look pretty good actually right there. Maybe we'll have the X over here. I don't know, folks. We're just kind of trying to figure it out. Maybe this needs to be in this column, like with these guys. So the arrows on the side. I feel like the chevron could be a little bit larger. Boom. but, or the delete column button could be a lot smaller, one of the two. And let's see, item center, boom. It's kind of hidden though, you know. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we don't want the task to be out there. Or what we could do is do this, just have that there. From here, you're deleting a task with 2 tasks. It's all caps now. It's yelling at me. That's perfect. Perfect. You're deleting a column with 1 task. Don't do it. Don't do it. Maybe we could have an option like delete task too, like delete task as well as the column, right? Something like that potentially, right? But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not, folks. Item center. Let's see. Boom. Okay. I can't tell if that's in the middle or not. It looks like it's a little bit up than it is in the middle. Not a huge deal, but just enough of a deal to make a deal about the deal. So we'll say flex, item center. Let's see if that adjusted. Must be centered then. But it seems not for some reason. Seems like it's not. Seems like it's not. Okay, so let's zoom out. Looks like we got that roughly configured. We have our functionality here as well, where we can collapse a column. Looks like they're side scrolling pretty well. So that is that problem roughly solved. Okay, what can we do next? What can we do next? There's always more work to do, folks. Always something to do. So what was the thing we wanted to? We wanted to do the last indexed column or populate some sort of always completed column for everybody. So I'm torn because I imagine most people are going to have a linear way of thinking of like, we want a backlog, we want an in progress, we want like a backlog, a to do, an in progress, and a completed kind of order. But I'm just running through any cases in my brain if anybody would do something else to, if anybody would build, you know, something that's not that linear progress. So an idea that comes to mind now, and this might be a good idea. This might be an interesting piece of functionality, right? If we can add a switch to the columns that like would highlight one like gold or something, right? And of course have like a little pop over to say this is your column that you're deciding is quote unquote completed. So each column can have a switch and maybe only one can be active, or we can do all of them, either or. The functionality wouldn't be, if we could do it for one, we could do it for all of them. But I'm thinking have one column that you could click like a switch, like a toggle switch, like a slider, you know? And then it would just like outline the border to be gold or some sort of indicator saying like this is the column, and maybe we won't even have to do that outline or something. That would just be an easy visual indicator. But we can have the user say, no, this is the column I want to measure progress by, because you may even have columns like after quote unquote completed. And maybe any columns indexed after that would be counted as completed. Yeah, maybe. Oh, okay. So here's maybe another idea. Maybe we build another type of column where it's like a line, like that can go here or here, and you can populate as a user to say, if tasks are after this line, we want to consider it part of the completed, the project completion. Yeah, I like where my head is going because these are fruitful ideas. I like where my head is going. We still have questions around if we delete a column, does it delete the task? Does it delete the task status? I feel like it should, but that seems like a really, really big thing to do, to delete a column and all the tasks with it. Like maybe tasks can only be deleted by themselves or bulk deleted somehow, but I feel like they should be kind of their own places, but then they need a place to live, so we might need a backlog too. So there's a few things I'm thinking right now, but coming to the project completion one, I like some sort of idea where you can mark, maybe it's just like a red line, right, that we could put in between the columns. And basically what it is, it's going to be a column that you just can't assign tasks to. And we'll say if this is at any insertable index in the columns, but how would that work on a data standpoint? Yeah, that's going to be a tricky build. So, but I think it's similar to the switch, right? Where you could switch one column and say this is the column that I want to measure for completed. But that doesn't answer if someone wants to have like a completed section, and then there's also maybe like a DevOps section where you could say deployed or like being tested, like somewhere in the pipeline, the CI/CD pipeline. But maybe the component's like done being built, it just needs to be tested or something, you know. So what a cool idea that would be though, to have just like a line, right? And you would say any task past this would be what's it called? Counted for completed. That would be a really, really interesting idea. So let me build for that. I think that would be a really powerful concept. I think the initial way to get it done though is to have a column that we can select as this column is going to be the definitive column we call for completed tasks. Let's see how to do this. Okay, so first we're going to need to build some sort of switch, right? Some sort of just button, like a toggle, base toggle.tsx. I really do like the line thing though, to be honest. So I'm going to build this kind of quick, where it's just kind of quick, sloppy, gets the job done. Maybe not sloppy, but gets the job done, right? In fact, we can probably just steal it from Tailwind or our trusty friend ChatGPT. I'll say, can you build a slider toggle in React? Boom. Because basically what it's going to be is you're going to look at a let's see. Maybe we do build this without using ChatGPT, because can't use it for everything, right? Base toggle. Let's see, base toggle, boom. And let's go ahead and use it in the column, and it'll exist somewhere at the top of the column. So boom, base toggle, and let's go ahead and say toggle. Boom. So the component's getting in there, and we can go ahead and build background gray 100. Let's just boom. Okay, so we just can see what we're working with. And in the React frags, I will build a div here. This will be class name flex. And we actually want to round, let's say rounded X. So both the left and right sides, we'll say 80 pixels. Believe that's what we want to do rounded left. Okay. So it looks like it doesn't do rounded X. So we can say rounded right 80 pixels. I thought for sure it did do rounded X. Is that not a thing? Rounded dash X. Oh, it must not be. Okay. But okay, looks like we could do LR maybe. L R or right left. Let's just try that out for tailwind. Nope. Okay, so we'll just stick to this and blast through it real quick. Okay. Boom, and this will be our toggle slider. So this needs to be background, let's say like black, or this would actually be white technically. And this could be a darker gray of like 700. And let's say height like 4 with 4 rounded full. Basically we want like a little circle, right? And maybe we won't make it 500 so we can visually see the difference. So item center, so to adjust everything, right? Flex, boom. I can't really see the difference though between the sliders. So let's go back to 200, a little bit lighter. We'll say cursor pointer. And basically what we're doing is having a div within a div, and all the two divs need to do is just interact with each other in a way where, why can't we see the gray? I really can't see it. Okay, so I'll try red then. Oh, I know why. I know exactly why. Because we don't have a width associated to it. So let's say width, let's say 16 maybe. Boom, there we go. Okay, width 8. Do a little bit less. And let's go back to our grays. See if that's all we needed for some sort of smaller thing. Yep, perfect. Okay. And we do need state here. So import use state from React, and const is toggled. Right? Right? You guys picking up what I'm dropping? Set toggled equals use state false. And we'll go ahead and declare it as a Boolean. Gotta love the old TypeScript. And what we're gonna do is right now the position of this is justify start, and then by the end of it, we'll have it on the other side, justify end. So when we click the state is toggled, basically all we're gonna do is set toggled to the opposite of is toggled. And all that's gonna do is say, yeah, on, off, right? So every time we click this, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, that's all we're gonna do. And we're gonna use that two-way state to declare the class name, just to give us a visual indicator of what that state is actually doing. So let's build for that. We have justify start here, and let's grab this. Oh, didn't mean to delete all of it. So we'll say is toggled, boom, this, and we could say justify start on this line of CSS. Justify, not content, justify start. And then the same line of CSS is going to be this, but justify end. And then finally, we just need to add a transition on both of them. And we could even do like a background green, right? So when you toggle it on, boom. See that, folks? Maybe I don't have the transition on the right spot, but there we go. We got a toggle. We got a little toggle, folks. Just like that. Just like that. Why is it so quick? But that's fine, even if it is. Not too stressed about it. Transition all. Why are the transitions not working? So, and this is what ChatGPT did. You have way more CSS, and looks like this right here is what chat did. So we're going to stick with ours. I like ours, of course, a lot more, being custom in-house. And we know how it works. Looks great. I trust it 100%. Let me just ask chat, can you make the transition work? Boom. We get a little sipperoo of the old coffee. So let's see what it says. Boom. Oh, it does something different with transition. Okay, so instead of doing justify in, it's doing a X translate. So let's try that. Nice. That is smooth. That is pretty. Okay. Let's also reverse the colors, because right now it's green. Gray if it is toggled. And basically we want the opposite. We want that. So if it's off, boom, turn it off. If it's on, turn it on. And I think that's the right background that we were using, right? I believe it was the right background. So, so now we have a toggle switch that looks just gorgeous. And we want to add with our functionality, maybe we can even have a drop down, like a dot, like a popover drop down that can have all these functionalities, because now we're kind of stacking up. We have a length issue. We got a delete modal thing. And we also have this collapsible thing. So, and then now also a toggle switch. So we're getting kind of a lot of functionalities here. Maybe there's an opportunity, right, for cleaning it up, you know, making something out of this as well. So don't want to do all that, right? Oh, I see. And it's going to mess with the click. So we need to stop propagation on this click. Say methods, or method in this case, just one, not method. Function handle toggle. And what does it take? e.react.mouse event, right? And we'll say e.stop propagation. And boom, this is all we need. This logic right here, handle toggle. I think we invoke it. I forget. Nope. Okay. Now it's not. Now we're getting no toggle. Now we're getting nada enchilada. Okay, so it's e.handle toggle. Do we even need this wrapper div? I don't even think we need this. Okay, so that's sleek. That is lightweight. That is super sleek. Gosh, look at that. That is super sleek. I love seeing that. So, but let's get it working again, where it's not working the way we want it to. And again, this toggle thing, it's kind of an interesting idea, right? So I'm gonna want to toggle the one that counts for project completion, or maybe we can have, you know, multiple selectors to say, okay, if it's in the CI/CD pipeline, we could call that completed. If it's in that, it's this similar concept of putting a red line, right? You know, it's saying any columns after this, consider them past your completion, right? So you can kind of indicate as a project manager, or as you know, an operations guy, when your project is when you're defining the finish line, right? Whether it's at the 80% mark, whether it's at the 100% mark, whether it's at you know, is it pushed to the repo? Is that where you call a feature done? Is it when you're demoing it? Is that when you call a feature done? Like maybe you can have a column, is product demoed? Yeah, Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff here. Again, what's with the deal with the stop propagation? Why is it not? What did we change? What did we change over here? Oh, I see. I see what was changing. Or perhaps I don't. Perhaps I do not. So we're not getting any love from the toggle anymore. Why is that? Because of this? Because I handle toggle? See? There we go. Okay. So this is definitely not item center. I can see it now for sure. But I think the idea actually is probably better now to do a 3 dots and then have a drop down where we can choose either a toggle or delete this column or collapse it, set the next state. I think that's what we'll end up doing because now it's getting really noisy up here. So we'll probably build for that as well at some point because yeah, it's just looking sloppy, of course, and we don't do that. Absolutely not. That is below the standard. So boom, flex, and we'll put it back to item center. But for right now, this is fine. But you can see over here, it's pretty noisy. So I do also like the idea of putting the line in between two, because then you could also take out functionality there and it's not as cluttered. Because even with the drop down, we're going to have 3 things already there. We're going to have the number of items in this column. We're going to have the deletability and then also the column state. So to kind of noise it up with the 4th thing of this column counts, I like the red visual, like some sort of line. I really do like that. But this will work for now, at least getting us started to see how to build this concept kind of out. And right now I'm debating, do we want only one slider active? Because then all these sliders need to communicate with each other. And if one slider is active, then if I click this one, then it should knock off the other ones. Or what we could do is measure, which I think would make more sense for the red line. Strategy is make it so if multiple columns are highlighted, if you will, or toggled on, right, that they count as well for project completion. So like I said, we could potentially have like, let's just go ahead and build them out, I guess. So we'd say like, you know what I mean? Our backlog. So that would be 1 column. Then we'd have like let's say to do, that would be like 1 column. Then we'd have in progress, that would be another column. And then we'd have maybe like component in repo or something, right? That would be like another column. Then we'd have like testing / CI/CD. That would be another column. Maybe it'd be like demo, and that would be another column. And then we'd have completed, right? And that would finally be, I think, our last column. Hopefully we got all those in there. We're going to delete some of these other columns that we aren't looking at real quick. Deleting, boom. Go on, get. And then we need to refetch for columns after they are deleted. And let's see, let's refresh. So I can kind of oh, we only got the backlog one. Out of all those, we only got the backlog. That's funny. Okay, so let's just play it out like a real project almost would look, right? So you'd have a backlog, you could have a to-do column, and then what do we call the other one? In progress column, and then we would have, what was it? Merged, maybe column or something like merged to dev, and then maybe we'd have test / demo, right? Maybe a column like that, and then we'd have completed. So hopefully it got those. Test / demo. Didn't get the completed. Let's put that one in there. Come on. Oh, we have a limit of columns. That's right. So let's take that limit off for a sec, or up it significantly to like 10, because this seems like a reasonable software development lifecycle, right? So basically, let's go pop that one in. So basically, we could have like a red line after like here. So anything after merged, we can like consider part of the project or something. Like, okay, so you merge it to your repo. Maybe it's gone through PR, or maybe you do have it after, here. Maybe there's like a QA process, right? So instead of completed being there, we'll also need to update the ability for people to move columns. So that'll need to be a thing. So we could have a QA process and then also a completed progress process as well. So maybe like after the test demo or after QA, you might call significant progress at one of these points, is what I'm saying. So that's why the red line would work, or inevitably, I guess we'd be flicking multiple switches. Like, okay, this would count towards production. This would count towards progress. Or we could do both ideas even, where the slider would account for progress. So we say, okay, at each one of these count for like X amount of points out of the 100%. Maybe we could base it on the index. Like this would be 60%, 70%, 80%. And then ultimately after the red line, that's complete or something. So there's kind of a hybrid of ideas I'm thinking about right now. But I like where my head is at on these. I think a cool piece of functionality is going to come out of this. So maybe it is the red line, and maybe we could have two lines, like a red and a purple line, where the red line is like, okay, after this is progress, and then after the purple line, it's completed. That's 100% mark. Yeah, maybe we could do that, So, or I don't even have to do a purple line. What I could do is just a red line, and then the completed would be at the last indexed column, and we'd still just be doing the last indexed column. So, but maybe the two lines is a good thing, right? So I think that's kind of a good idea. Kind of like it, right? Yeah, let me actually ponder on that, because I think how we're going to approach building it might be a little different. But I think in short, when we handle the toggle, I think we're going to need to omit which column is being handled, if you will. So in the very similar sense that the base button kind of accepts a custom function, I think what we're going to do here is, let's say iProps. I think it's going to be roughly a void function, and let's destructure it here and pop it in here. How did we use it? Base button, on click custom functions. So I think it could be a similar, well, we just need to emit which column is clicked on. That's all. So really we need the state from base toggle to, I guess we could use the test store for this. In Vue, I would just pop it up, but maybe here set column toggled or something. Task column toggled. Set task column toggled, yeah. And I keep saying, well, in Vue I'd do this, but we're not in Vue. So it's time to grow up, But okay, so set task column toggled, and we're going to use that state. Ultimately, these are going to be functions. I think relevant to the database because the state needs to be tracked, or at least where that line will be needs to be tracked, which index. So that will be a different approach than state-based approach. That'll be part of the data, I think. But okay, so in here we could import task store. We can instantiate it. And we could take the task store. Oh, but that still doesn't, we still need to pass in which column ID this is being indexed, right? Or being toggled rather. So I could pop this here. We can either do the index or the column ID. And we might want to opt for the index if we're going to do the red line approach. I do think that's going to end up being a more fruitful approach for that one, right? Say number. Let's go ahead and destructure it here. Oh, not a period. We want a comma. And boom, bada bang. Okay. And we forgot to iprops here. Task store, and we will set the task store set task column toggled, and we need to go to the task store as well because we're actually setting it to a string array when it should be a number array. But now that I think about it, it might be easier to do either the column index or yeah, okay, let's stick to column index. I think that'll be smartest. Okay. So what's our error now? Column index. Number undefined is not assignable to, well, weird, because it's now no longer undefined. It has to be defined. Column index, right? Jeez, sorry guys, let's go to the task store. Just make it this at the very least. Should not be undefined. It should always exist. Task column index. Should never be a time when the task column doesn't have an index. Right? Oh, I see. I see. So we're not pushing it there. What's the error here? Looks like it's something else, I believe. We'll figure that error out in a sec. I'm sure it's in one of the collapsed functions. So this needs to be old calls, right? We'll say old calls and new column index. I believe as we don't even need to do as number. So boom, as we toggle, and then when we untoggle though too, that's what we need to check. We need to, if similar to what we do when we flip the arrow, or excuse me, when we toggle these, we need to steal that same bit of logic and basically say if task store task columns toggled, if it includes this index, column index, we need to delete it out. So const delete index equals task store column toggled index. Yes, that is correct. And then we need task store, yep, spliced, delete index 1 and return. Else do that. So I think now when we toggle it, now we're tracking that data that we can literally say, let's see if we pull the task store here. Actually, let's go to base columns at the top of the screen. I believe we have task store. So if we say task store and we say task column toggled, should be columns toggled, we should see the list of them, I believe. or like the array of them, right? Task column toggled. It is an array though. Okay, so something is broken, or we're not doing something right, right? Let's go to the task store here. Let's try it one more time, but we'll do it at the column toggle. So task column toggled. Should see. Okay, let's ask ChatGPT. I am trying to push a column index to my array, but if it already is in the array, splice it. Let's see. We could also look at the logic that we did for this, for toggling one task open. So we've const, we find the task. Oh, okay, that's right. And then we copied the array like this. And then we reset the const new columns toggled, right? And what do we have here? Task open. So this would, I suppose, be this. And then we could take this and say boom, and set this to task store set columns toggle to that, right? Maybe that's what we needed. Okay. This is what it's saying to do for the handle toggle function here. Let's see if this works. See if that works. Just not seeing any of the data. So maybe all of them are working, right? But we're just not seeing the data. So let's console log it. Thought we had it somewhere, right? Console log task that's stored, not get task columns toggled. Let's just see which ones are toggled. So none, 0. Perfect. So it is working. I don't like what it's doing here because I think it's doing something else where it's like removing each one, but we want to stack each column that's in there. We don't want to remove it as it's getting added. We want to stack. So I think what it was doing was a new one would come in, it would remove the old one, and then add the new click. So we just want to add. Oh, it's still firing off. So we see that 0 in there. It's great. And then if we add this, we should see a 0 and a 1. Oh. Huh. Okay. Let's think about it. Old calls. Maybe I don't need to do all this. Maybe I just need to do this. Because all we want to do is just set the index, right? We're getting a ton of renders, so we'll have to look into that in a sec. Just set the index. So, but we want them all part of the same array. So old calls, boom, boom, boom. Why isn't this working? Boom. Let's see what edits it does. It says it's adding it, but I don't see it in the, I see it in one array, but I don't see it in the overall task store, task columns toggled array. So, interesting, right? But when we look at our project completed component, base project percentage, basically doing the math here, calculate task is completed. It's not going to be done. We're just going to search for the column that I believe comes from the task store. Like the index of that column. Or I guess we could pass in the column name. Now that I think about it, would make more sense. Index would make sense if we're doing the line, the red line thing, but this way it actually probably would be easiest now that we're coming fully around to just pass in the column name. Base toggle. So let's go for that. Let's go to the toggle. We don't want column index. We just want name, string, and actually don't need a custom function. We're trying to handle it all here in the toggle component. We don't need column index. Just need the name. And we're going to get an error because in the task store, we are looking for task numbers, but now we need to go to a string. It should roughly, let's see, task column name. String undefined is not available. Okay, well, every task column should have a header, so that gets rid of that. All right, so that's that error. Let's see if we can get this roughly working, right? So we just want to see this project completion component change based on at least something we're toggling, right? At least for now, and then I'll edit some stuff behind the scenes just to clean it up. So I am seeing it pop up on the console. So anything that we're popping up, we see the in progress, the to do one. So basically, and we'll just shoot for getting one working. So we'll say is task status, and I guess we could not make it a array, but that's fine for now. We'll do that. So let's pull in the task store. Say console task store task column toggled. Say dot map. Say task column. Actually, better yet, let's just take the 0th one for right now. Better yet, let's just do that and see what we can do with that. So this should, if we go to judge our project completion, they all should be perfect because nothing is toggled. And then if I toggle one of them with like task here on the to do, let's see if the overall changes. If we refetch, oh, dang it. Okay, so it's not, oh, no. I was going to say it shouldn't be a problem here. But okay, let's console log this. Let's see what is in here. Undefined. Okay, so if we go to our dashboard, get some errors here. So it added to do. We're still getting all this undefined. What about this? What is this? So it's an empty array. let me just try one quick thing with the task store, and then we're gonna pop off. So instead of it being an empty array, let's just set this, and we'll go to base toggle. Instead of all this, real quick, let's just add all this, and we'll say task store dot set task column toggled task column name. That's it. That's it. We'll just start with that, and then we don't need to do this. We can just simply set it to one of them and just get it working. But I don't think it's working. Let's see. Dashboard project completion. No, nothing's popping up. Because even the overall one should at least still be working because it's measured based on the last task status if project names overall. Filter all the tasks, the completed task, based on the ones in the to-do column is what this is saying. The last status of where they're at, they're in the to-do column. But it's not obviously working. So let's think about it. Oh, I wonder if it's working and then it stops working because we go to a different page, so the state changes. So let me hard code this then to do, pretend we just had some data, right? Let's see, actually, if we do this to do, it's capital D. Then if we go to base project percentage now, maybe we'll see something. There we go. Okay, so that is the issue. That is the issue, is when we change state, it's not maintaining the state in the store as well. So, but if we push that to database, that'll obviously handle itself. And then we can measure tasks. We can see which ones are in which column, and we can define them by the column. So that kind of works for now. Let's put it back to done, right? If we want to measure by done, let's see, we should see significantly more on this when we refresh. So that was when it was on to do. Let's see, significantly more when we refresh. Perfect. Perfect, folks. Okay, so I think that's a good start for that, and bit of a fruitful and frustrating talk earlier, but yeah, guys, thank you for watching the Code Chronicles, Programming with Pags. Thank you. Cheers.